I took my kids on a Disney cruise for Christmas, and I wanted to share our experience with you so that you know if you want to add a Disney cruise to your list of adventures at any point. People are usually either diehard fans or not really into it, so I'll share my experience and let you decide what your opinion is. So the pre-check-in process was kind of involved. We had to load all these documents to the system before we even checked in. But once we got to the location, the check-in was pretty much like checking in at an airport. And once we were checked in with all of our documents and my son got his bracelet, we headed to our cabin, straight for our cabin. We had checked our luggage when we walked up. So this is Disney's oldest, I believe, cruise ship. So I was expecting it to look older than it did. I mean, it does look dated, but it was very clean and very well maintained. People had decorated their doors really nicely. And it was easy to figure out where we were headed on the ship once we were on board. People really go all out with their decorations, which is nice and cute, and people even had little mailboxes on their doors to deliver each other stuff. So I love that the bathrooms are split between the shower and the toilet. It makes it easy to coordinate and use the bathroom, and it's occupied. And our room came with a set of bunk beds and a Murphy bed, along with the, I think, queen size main bed, which was nice. Everyone had their own bed to sleep in. They would put the beds up during the day and then take them down while we were at dinner each evening. So we would come back to freshly made beds and a clean room every night, which was nice. We could keep track of the schedule on the TV that was in the room, and we also had plenty of space for luggage underneath the bed. They host this really cool sail away party as the boat takes off from the shore, which is nice and gets everybody prepped for all the activity that's going to be happening on board. My son went to the Oceaneer Lab most of the time. This is where he spent like 80% of his time, and they let parents come in during the open houses, but other than that, it's kids only. And they have a neat little app that I'll show later that your kid can use to message you when they're ready to be picked up from the kids club. So my son was begging to go back here. He had a blast. They had all kinds of activities happening and opportunities for them to meet a lot of the Disney characters while they were in there as well. This was his favorite part of the trip, aside from spending a lot of time at the pool. And he really this was his trip. Whatever he wanted to do is what we did. And I actually had to convince him a lot of times to leave the play area to go and do some of the other activities on the ship. As you can see, they had a huge slide. They had iPads the kids could use, games that they could play, activities that they could participate in, and he left with all kinds of goodies. So the Disney Navigator app is where the schedule was and where I could send messages to everyone in my family as long as they had the app downloaded on their phone. And they had all these cute little avatars and icons you could use, which was nice. So this by far was the crappiest part of the trip. The safety briefing required us to stand in line, crowded for about 20 minutes before we could go back to our rooms. This is the pool area where my son enjoyed a couple of hours a day while I sat next to the pool, kind of keeping my eye on him. But they did a good job of watching the kids, and they had lifeguards on duty at all times when the kids were in the pool area, and it was shallow enough for him to stand in. And this is what I did most of the time while he was playing in the pool. This is the balcony of our room, and I will never book another interior cabin again after this experience. The boat was pretty noisy, and it was really nice to be able to come and just sit on the veranda in peace and quiet and enjoy the sounds and the beauty of the ocean. Our first night of dinner was at Rapunzel's Table, I believe it was called, and they had like all the live action characters in there hanging out with us for dinner. They had live music, they had interactive stuff happening. The food was so-so, it was kind of hit or miss. Like we had some really good meals and we had some not so good meals, but overall it was edible and it was good enough. It wasn't horrible food at all. And like I said, they had the live music. The kids had a chance to meet the characters. They interacted with both the adults and the kids. The service on Disney cruises and the interaction with the kids is top notch. Like, these people put a lot of energy into what they do, and it's reflected at the end of your stay when you get charged $15 a day in tips for every server that you have. That includes dinner, the people that clean your rooms. I think we had about 6 different servers that we had to pay $15 a day, which adds up. So as you can see, my son was hyped. They really didn't give kids a hard time about being excited, because that's what Disney cruises are all about. So we let him roam free. This is Keys, one of the adult areas on the club, and this is also where they serve a lot of the alcoholic drinks, which are not included as part of a package. So you have to pay for those, and they range from about $10 to $15. This is another view of the veranda. I really spent a lot of time here, just enjoying the peace and quiet. If you are looking for a relaxing cruise, Disney is not the way to go. It's loud. There's lots of activity all the time. So book a veranda if you want peace and quiet. They had a lot of these big windows throughout the ship as you explore the different decks, so that you could always see the ocean, which was nice. My son loved it. And this is an example of a day of activities on the ship. So if you go through the list and you click on the hearts next to the activities, the app will send you a reminder about 15 minutes before the activity begins. So each day, I would just go in early in the morning and scroll through and click on hearts next to everything that I was even remotely interested in, and then get updates throughout the day when those activities were about to happen. And then I would choose whether or not I wanted to go. But really, you could just walk around the ship and aimlessly run into a lot of the activities, which was nice. There was never a dull moment on the ship, which is why all the parents and kids were exhausted getting off at the end of the cruise. This is the elevator in the main area. My son loved to ride this elevator because you could see what was happening in the atrium. The elevators were tiny and crowded all the time. I have a lot of views of the veranda in here, and I'll use this to talk about my tips. One tip is that you want to bring a lot of water, because water is not free unless it's tap, and sometimes the tap water didn't taste so great. So we bought about 20 bottles of water, and that was enough for the 4 of us to have enough to drink throughout the cruise. Another thing to keep in mind is that they're going to sell the kids on a lot of toys. Expect to spend an additional $500 to $1,000 on the cruise, even if you're a person who's good at not spending. This is one of the live musicians that was there throughout the cruise. He played in different areas of the ship. They also had other live performers, and they had really excellent theater performances throughout the cruise as well, top notch. So we went to Mexico, and we had booked an excursion ahead of time, and they canceled it last minute. So we were kind of on our own, and we're at the mercy of the tourist vultures that were at the port. Which was no fun. We got overcharged to go to a beach that was really subpar. They had made all these promises about all the activities that would be available, and they just weren't. You'll see my son, they didn't even have a life jacket that would fit my son properly. The beach was like, quote unquote beach, 50 feet wide. The water was not the best. It was a really disappointing experience. So I recommend that even if you plan to book an excursion through Disney, do your research on other options before you go, to make sure that you have a nice experience at whatever port you dock at. I didn't plan ahead because I thought Disney had a Castaway Bay or something like that, and they really didn't provide a lot of guidance for us on things to do at port, or even things to do on the ship. We really had to rely on the Navigator app. So we headed back to the ship after spending probably an hour and a half in Mexico to eat. They had non-stop performances throughout the ship, and they even had a moment where they had snow falling in the atrium for the children, which was really nice. They had lots of magical moments on the ship. So even though Mexico was disappointing, the kids were eager to get back on the ship, and they still had an amazing time. So Pirate Night was by far the most festive night on the ship. They delivered little headbands and scarves to our room so that we could all kind of play along with the fun. At dinner, they did a limbo for the kids and had them dancing around the restaurant, and the waiters really paid special attention, remembered the kids' names, and engaged with them in a way that made them feel special, which I think is part of the magic of a Disney cruise for kids. They came back to my son's table and called him out specifically. He really just caught the attention of a lot of the employees on the boat. And that night, they had a huge boat party. It was the final night of the cruise. The kids were turned. They were all making friends and playing with all the toys they had bought. And then they had Mickey come out and surprise us with a zip line across the top of the ship down to the stage. And they had a live performance that the kids really, really enjoyed. Disney really does do the most and give 1,000% on these cruises because they do get ratings, and anything less than excellent we found was a fail for them. They had a nice fireworks show on the last night of the cruise, which was beautiful. It was just pure party. Like, there was no time to sleep, no time to relax. You had to be really intentional about finding a quiet space. My son was able to get really close up on the stage, and the performers were energetic. Kids and adults were having a great time, and they played music that was relatable for both the adults and the children, which was nice. I was able to, on the last full day at sea, find a quiet place in one of the other adults only areas to sit and fill out my planner for 2022 and get a nice view of the ocean. But like I said, finding that quiet time is not an easy task on a Disney cruise, so plan to take another vacation to get rested afterwards. This was my favorite activity on the ship, and it was a Marvel Superman face-off that I thought I was going to win, but there were some more hardcore Marvel fans than me in the room. And so this is our last night, and me getting my last little view of the ocean at night, which is so beautiful. The weather was perfect. As you can see, I didn't have to wear a jacket or anything in December. And this was our dinner on the last night at the Animator's Palette, which was my very favorite restaurant on the ship. As far as food goes and the experience, you could see how each of the Disney characters were animated as you sat at the table through the night. It was like an invisible hand was drawing on the wall, and eventually the room filled up with color and the paintings became animated, and Disney paid us a surprise visit. Not Disney, Mickey Mouse, sorry. And our table was situated so that we could be really close and intimate with Mickey when we got a final farewell. Overall, I would give it a 7 out of 10 for adults and a 10 out of 10 for kids. Unless you go without your kids, in which case it could be a 10 out of 10 for adults as well. But the kids had a really great time. They got to be more independent and really enjoy themselves. And I think they enjoyed it as a Christmas gift. I would just say follow those tips. Come prepared, know what you're getting into, and be prepared to spend money without thinking about it. And you'll have a great time on Disney. Also, buy all of your Disney clothes and ears and all that before you get on the ship, because everything is extremely expensive in the gift shops as well. So make sure you're fully prepared before you get on the boat. And also, I would highly recommend taking a day off after you get back from your cruise in order to rest and recover, because it will be a constant party.